Obviously want to thank the panelists. I was thinking about this morning how crazy busy everybody is these days, and I can't get through my email. And so for Mark to travel in from Durham, Chris came in from Charlottesville, Virginia, JC and Lynn are we're all incredibly busy. So I want you to know that I don't take it lightly that you're here and what it took to be here. How many of you are investors, have or are investing in ventures of some type? Okay, and I know we have some representation from the nonprofit sector, on purpose nonprofit. So and there's a lot going on, obviously, in this region related to social entrepreneurship, and how many in the nonprofit sector in some form or fashion. So good. So we really have a good blend, and we want you to help us address the kinds of issues that you're facing. It'll be a challenge. We're going to try to keep it tight in terms of timing. And actually, you know, the road to this for me started in 2001. I asked J.C. Faulkner to sit down with a tape recorder running and begin asking him questions. He was a friend. He was a client. He had sold a company for a deal valued over time roughly $100 million. And my background's in psychology and as being a student of human performance. He's a human, and this was quite a performance. And the team and the organization were healthy, vibrant, wonderful culture, incredible talent. I wanted to know why it worked, so I wanted to do a case study. That conversation led to a series of additional conversations over the years with him and others. It led to about 200 pages of interview transcripts. It led to a more immersive study on my part into the entrepreneurial process. It led to me giving up my corporate clients, which was a pretty substantial, most of my business, and deciding to focus only on startups and early stage ventures. And it ultimately led to a book and a book deal and a publication of a book. So that conversation led to a lot. At a high level, I've always been amazed at how many people dream of doing their own thing, how many dream of starting their own business. This study showed that 72% of working adults dream of starting their own business. There's a lot of desire there, and there's a lot of actual activity. This year, I think we're projected to hit 6.6 million in new business creation, and I think that'll be a 15-year high, and no signs of abating. However, the other piece of data that is very real is that most businesses don't make it. Most businesses close within 5 years. 6 out of 10 people who become self-employed end up going back to work for someone else within 10 years. Typical business owner, and this is for businesses that actually make it, business owners will make 35% less typically over a 10-year period than if they had stayed in their previous job. And report longer hours, more stress, fatigue, insomnia, depression, conflict with spouses. You know, other than these things, it's a sweet gig, right? But that dichotomy, that paradox of so many people bring passion to it, and so many people don't make it. And you know, JC and I have talked about this. If someone told you you can walk through that door, and the odds are pretty good you're not going to make it, most people would walk through the door. And it's fascinating. And so what I've started to look at, what is going on there? Is it possible that the actual passion, that desire, plays some role in businesses failing? And so this is the only teaser on the book, and most of today is not going to be about the book. But the premise of the book is that entrepreneurial passion is a double-edged sword. It brings both positive and negative impact to business founders or owners. And 6 basic snapshots I'll show you very quickly as to ways in which passion can be a negative or have a negative impact. You know, when a founder is not realistic about what they know how to do, where their strengths are, and therefore their role is not aligned with what the business actually needs from them. Assuming a market is there when it's not, or assuming a market a robust market is there when it's actually quite limited. Planning with rose-colored glasses. Putting all the eggs of all your resources into one basket with little flexibility. The old reality distortion field. The feel-good bubble that can form around teams that are, cool idea, drinking the Kool-Aid. And all of these leading to often, which is where the idea of a passion trap comes from, getting to a point where the runway is evaporating more quickly than you'd hope. We're going to organize the conversation around 4 universal themes, which are on the handout in your seat. And rather than try to explain what the framework's about, we're just going to use it as an organizing framework for our discussion today. And the first focus area for us is this notion that I call founder readiness. And it's all about the fit between what a founder brings to the table, or a founding team, and what the business needs from that person at a particular phase. And it's about skills, it's about talent, it's about experience, it's about motivation. Why did you take the entrepreneurial leap? What motivated you? And what aspects of the idea were you most passionate about?
The reason I got started, quite frankly, was growing dissatisfaction with corporate America, where I wasn't feeling the passion, I wasn't feeling like I was really doing things that were for the good, or I'd lost what was for the good. But about that time, I had a personal experience in my family where my mother had dementia. My father was her full-time caregiver. And I discovered in kind of diving into this senior industry that people were really happy in their jobs. So those 3 things really attracted me.
I was dabbling a lot before I kind of took the dive. I was kind of 1 foot in academia, 1 foot in a small business I was really kind of doing a laboratory semi-discovery process, both in and out of the academy. And in retrospect, it felt like that we were essentially trying to find an idea that had merit. And once we did and kind of had that discovery, then it almost becomes delusional. You have so much passion about the idea that you can't think about anything else. And but there's this kind of sense of kind of circling around the ideas, and then once something hits, and in my case, we were developing software to deliver educational materials to mobile devices before the big smartphone wave, which was in the video iPod days. And so seeing the reactions of students who were using the prototype was the key catalyst. It was incendiary. It made everything else kind of non-existent in terms of professional work. So very much a passion for the idea itself. I resonated with your slide pretty well in terms of the passion trap.
And from across the room, all entrepreneurs look like risk takers. And I'll just speak for myself. I am not a risk taker. I want to have an advantage. I want to go into this knowing that I have, if I'm going to go compete in a market where there's seasoned people, that I'm going in there with something in my pocket that really helps me. And so I was fortunate that the last job I had, I built a trading desk at First Union and got to know the 2 or 3 biggest buyers in the marketplace. And I remember sitting down with them. My advantage was I was able to sit down with those guys and say, if I go do loans, will you buy them? And they said yes. I said, if I go do loans and you buy them, will you give me some money to start this company? Yes, yes. So I went out there knowing that I could get people, I could get money, I could do pro formas, that at least all the pieces were on the table if I were smart enough and composed enough to put it all together, when it really counted.
What's the key ingredient in the founder? And it appears to me that typically they're builders. They are people who are extremely execution oriented. They don't consider themselves to be big thinkers. They don't consider themselves to be in the business of building something and it'll be so great that people will just naturally show up and pay for it. They're much more detail oriented than that. It's very akin to what JC was referring to when he was formulating his own ideas about being super prepared and then building the the enterprise brick by brick, block by block, bit by bit, if you will. And I think that's a strong common denominator that I've noticed over the years in the various companies that I've been involved in that have succeeded in spite of my own participation in some of these companies.
My mother had we had placed my mom in adult daycare for 5 days a week, and it was a great resource for my dad. It was a way for him to spend so much less time at home. It was good for her, but I didn't really like what I saw in the industry after riding around and kind of looking at a lot of them. So I really wanted to create something different. Although adult daycare was not new, the way I envisioned my building and a profitable long-term venture was really new.
The one thing I would tell you, for those of you who are thinking about it, it's kind of like a home improvement project. For those of you who have done that, no matter how hard you think it is, it's twice as hard. I remember when I walked out of First Union, that green jacket I took off the last day I was there. I offered to stay 60 days to help them transition. They walked me out the next day, which is what you have to do at banks. And when I took off the green jacket, I remember it landed very loudly on the floor behind me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope like heck I'm doing the right thing.
Silverware in the pockets.
Silverware, yeah, salt shakers in the pocket. But so that's how I got out there. I was just trying to be prepared.
There are a couple of other things I think are super key. One of them was on the slides that John/Buck was showing a minute ago. And it's this idea that you need to be able to recognize the reality of the situation that you're in. Once you've launched your business, conditions are going to change. The sands never stop shifting. And the biggest pitfall that I see is that people don't recognize that, and they don't acknowledge that because they don't want it to be true. Maybe it's the passion trap, maybe it's the rose-colored glasses, pick your metaphor, but it's a form of denial, and it's a form of wishful thinking that overwhelms your critical thinking abilities. So the folks that I've worked with over the years that have been the most successful are the ones that are the first to recognize that something is different, or something is amiss, or there's something that needs to change in the business model. Market conditions have changed. New competitors sprang up out of nowhere. Somebody stole from you. It could be any of 1,000 things that happens, and usually it's 800 that do happen. And those that see that and then react and adapt and take advantage of their learnings are the ones that keep figuring it out as they go. In my mind, that's the other side of the same coin I was alluding to a minute ago with respect to being detail-oriented and execution-oriented. It's that ability to continue the building process and focus on execution in the face of adversity and change.